Welcome to the Snetterton 300 circuit that brings the Intelligent Money British GT Championship into the second half of its 2023 campaign. We've had some excellent racing already this season with a variety of winners across both GT3 and GT4, but now it's time for the attention to turn to point scoring as those at the top of the championship look to build on a strong campaign. We've got 34 cars racing here across two 60-minute races. Short, sharp action as the day goes on, and it's set to be another exciting instalment in this year's championship. Welcome back, everybody, to Snetterton for part number 2 of the British GT adventure, the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, with its second double header of the season. We've had one 60-minute race already, and that means we still have another hour of racing to go. Cars being brought around to the grid now in front of a big crowd here at Snetterton. The conditions still pleasant, albeit a little bit more humid and a little bit more overcast with every passing minute. Fingers crossed the rain stays away for the duration of the next 6 minutes or so. It's Andy McEwen here in the commentary box, to be joined very shortly by Joe Osborne, but right now he is down on the grid alongside Bryn Lucas.
He is, and he's looking resplendent in his white shirt as well, freshly pressed. Now the wind has picked up, hasn't it, since the race we had earlier on, Joe?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely bringing in a weather front directly from the south. All the radars I've been looking at, the teams are bringing rain in. I think we're safe by about 45 minutes at the moment, but we've seen here in the past when it rains at Snetterton, it is super slippy. Yeah. That would be a big headache for the drivers and all the teams here.
Well, we saw earlier on, just talk tyres for a second, we were talking to Sandy Mitchell at the end of that first race, and they changed their tyres and put fresh ones on that pit stop, which was a strange decision, but he said, well, look, it's a no-brainer for us, really, because we wanted to win this race. We weren't sure what we were going to do in race 2, so just bank the points. Yeah,
they have a certain amount of tyres allocated for the weekend. They can actually carry over one set of tyres from previous weekends. So if they've had a problem or it has rained, they might have a new set, which Barwell did. Some other teams, I think, have saved one of those new sets for the second stint for the AM when they get in. So it's going to be an interesting race. Yes, it's one race, but it's definitely two halves of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that pit stop window to see what happens.
Yeah, and the second race at Snetterton, the second of these two one-hour races is always a really thrilling one, because the pro driver goes in first of all, and so you get that real jeopardy at the end, don't you, of the AM drivers, maybe the less experienced drivers there, having to look over their shoulders a bit more and try and maintain what they've got to deal with.
It was a race that was led from start to finish by Barwell Motorsport, having inherited pole position after the penalty for the number 4 Mercedes, which had initially qualified at the front. It was a brilliant start to the race, though, for Sean Balfe. Held the lead into turn number 1 and never really looked back. Most of the action was happening some way behind him in the opening exchanges, including this clash on the opening lap between Kevin Say and Matt Topham, who was making his GT3 class debut. It damaged the back of the Enduro car. Matt Topham was able to hang on nicely to a front-running position. Then contact at Coram sent the number 3 Mercedes off along the grass. Mike Price rejoining after a spin at the back of the field. Another big moment there for the McLaren heading out onto the back straight. That allowed Darren Young through into second place in the early stages, and the Century BMW was a factor all race long. Then into the pit window, where the pit exit in particular became very, very busy indeed, and a couple of close calls led to some penalties for front-running cars that really did jumble up the order. It was a relatively slow pit cycle in the end for Century Motorsports, so Dan Harper had work to do to try and claw his way back up the order, which he did beautifully, working his way past not 1 but 2 McLarens, including this brilliant move on the inside of Chris Froggatt to claim second place into Rich's corner. The BMW man was on fire. He's become known this season for making some really good moves. However, his GT4 teammates were not exactly working well together. Lewis Plato into the back of Carl Cavers at the Wilson hairpin, which briefly allowed Josh Rowledge back ahead in the DTO McLaren. There's something about Barwell Motorsport at Snetterton that just seems to click, and that continued again in the first race of the day, with the number 78 car coming home victorious. Let's remind you all of how they're going to line up. With the Beech Dean Aston Martin on pole position, we've had Aston Martin success over the years here at Snetterton. perhaps another victory could be coming their way. Jules Gounon lines up alongside, though. He's going to be on his toes into that first corner. So too Raffaele Marcello for Ram Racing starting third. And then Dan Harper, the car that we believe now leads the championship in GT3, starting from the outside of row number 2. Michael O'Brien and Johnny Adam together on row 3. Johnny Adam one to watch in this one for sure, as he tries to get that points lead back. Race 1 winners, Barwell Motorsport will start from 7th. Sandy Mitchell at the wheel for the opening stint, whilst Callum McLeod is in the Greystone GT car that's qualified inside the top 10 for both races today. Marcus Clutton in the Enduro car that sustained bodywork damage on the opening lap starts 9th. Wiltra Gurtha completes the top 10 in the second Barwell car. Then it's Rob Bell in the Optimum Motorsport car. That car's got 5 seconds of compensation time to serve at the pit stop. Sam Neary, starting alongside, was in the top 5 in race 1. Martin Plowman and James Kell, a pair of McLarens. Paddock Motorsport and Race Lab sharing row 7, and row 8 is where we will find Ewan Hankey and Chris Froggatt, another 2 of the McLarens, together towards the back of the GT3 field. Next in line, we will have James Wallace. Oliver Webb in the Greystone GT McLaren will be next. And then we start moving into GT4s, where we do see another McLaren at the front. It's the championship leading car of Charles Clark, with Mike Simpson for Torre Verde GT alongside. So we've still got Ginettas near the front of the grid in GT4, but this time it's not Raceway, it's Torre Verde looking strong, because Joe Wheeler starts 4th alongside Seb Hopkins 3rd on that second row of the GT4 grid. Row 3 then for Josh Rowledge in the DCO Motorsport McLaren, Darren Burke in the Enduro Motorsport Example, and then the 4th row within GT4 sees Freddie Tomlinson in the car that ran so strongly in the opening race, Lewis Plato starting 8th alongside him. Top 10 in GT4 completed by Tom Rawlings and Michael Broadhurst. And then towards the back end of that always competitive GT4 field, we find a few cars actually that should move forward. Dan Vaughan, if they fix the problems in the Team Parker Porsche. Tom Wrigley in the Race Lab McLaren that is 2nd in the GT4 points. Then Chris Salkeld and Matt Cowley, all of them quick drivers, all of them quick cars, should make forward progress. The same true of Thomas Holland really, with Matt Nicol-Jones for company at the back of the field. The Ford Mustang for Academy Motorsport struggling a little bit, it seems, this weekend. Let's see what happens then as the 6th round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship gets ready to go here at Snetterton. 2x2 to the line. Ross Gunn will get the race underway from pole position. They roar past our commentary position, and the Aston Martin will lead them down to turn 1. Dan Harper already on his toes trying to find a way past Jules Gounon. Goes from the outside to the inside, then kind of gets stuck in the middle, and in the end they stay grid order through the first turn. So Gunn leads, Gounon 2nd, Marcello 3rd, Harper 4th, Gounon to the outside into the Wilson hairpin. Can he find that grip? No, he can't. Marcello sees his chance, gets his nose up the inside line, but the traction on the outside line means Gounon is still ahead and might even get up the inside of Gunn. No, the door is slammed in his face, and the Aston Martin stays in front.
Really good start. I actually feel like Marcello had an agreement with Gounon and let him in nicely at turn number 1. Teammates in other championships definitely might be a possibility. Gounon had a mega run out of turn number 2. Ross Gunn just then got the drive, which was enough to close the door. Too wide. Marcus Clutton, going around the outside of Callum McLeod. Big slide from Wiltra Gurtha there. Rob Bell on his inside, I think it was. See the cars darting around. The front 5 look a little more settled at the moment, though. Interesting to see. Let's give it a lap or 2. Let's let the tyres come in and see where that is. Big damage for Freddie Tomlinson, our race 1 winner. That's like a huge front end bonnet has gone on the exit of turn number 1. Interesting to see what happened there, but it looks like he's parking up for the day.
Not uncommon to see cars get turned around out of that first corner. We'll wait and see if we can piece together what happened. On board now with Marcello, heading down the Bentley straight into the braking zone, underneath the bridge, flick it left, bumpy corner, braking on a turn, then you change direction into Nelson. These guys know what they're doing. All of them inch perfect on the line through Nelson. Not too further back though, slipping a touch wide. That was the number 3 Greystone Mercedes wide over the curb. Callum McLeod, I think, has lost some position, started 8th, might be a position or so further back than that as they come towards the completion of the opening lap. It is Ross Gunn though for Beechdean who leads the way. Jules Gounon going with him.
Yeah, it looks like everyone's just finding their feet, aren't they? There's got almost equidistant gaps between the first 5 now. We saw Dan Harper really in that red Century BMW, currently P4, the man of race 1 in terms of the overtakes. So let's see where he starts to go. Strength of that BMW really is top line speed, and that's probably the weakness of the Mercedes in front. So when you get the difference and disparity, that's when the overtakes happen. Sandy Mitchell having to go to the defence there on Clutton. We saw Clutton having a mega opening lap, getting around the outside. He's going to try and do the cutback. He's going to take the racing line, the right-hand side for turn 3, Palmer, which will then make Sandy Mitchell slower out of it, and he's going to have to try and do another cutback. I think he's done the opposite. He's going to hang it all the way around the outside inside. The problem is he's still on the outside. Maybe there was a yellow flag out there that you saw, and it's going to be interesting. All the cars have a driver display showing the flags that are at the corner they're in. The Marcus Clutton keeps the attack going, so we're going to have to come back to that one. Sandy Mitchell got great drive, didn't he, out that hairpin, and that makes him live to fight another day.
Yeah, they drop away now from the cars ahead, and well, still Sandy Mitchell having to defend. Marcus Clutton really fired up, trying to find a way past, still looking for that switchback that just isn't coming. Sandy Mitchell knows where to position the car in order to close that door, and so the Lamborghini retains the advantage for now. 7th position heading down the back straight. There is the leading group. Not a huge amount of variation as you'd expect in the sector times, although the leaders a little bit slower than the 3rd and 4th place cars through that opening sector. And as we saw in the early stages of race 1, it's the 67 McLaren that looks really, really good on low pressures, closing in on the 4 ahead. Now, we saw the drama for the 56 car in the GT4 field. Maybe some replays at the start will help piece this together. Down to turn 1 they go, 3 wide for the race lead, Joe, and there, a major stack up.
Marcus Clutton's just dropped off the back as we go to the GT4 leader, Charles Clark. Got a little bit of a gap to Mike Simpson behind in the Toro Verde 86 Ginetta, but not a bigger gap. We've seen him really check out, haven't we, in previous races, and able to really get going. Flashing his headlights, slow-going Mercedes, looks like he's got a problem. Wallace there probably coming into the pits in that Drive Tech car. Can't see an obvious problem in terms of all the tyres look inflated, but he's doing a really good job of staying out the way of these GT4 guys, because they're in a pretty fierce battle.
Possible damage to the right front corner, I think. Maybe a puncture or suspension damage by the way the car was sort of hobbling over the curb. Anyway, the GT4 leaders go past him. And yeah, Mike Simpson keeping the pressure on for Charles Clark here. That Charles Clark car with a big points lead. I think the tyre is off the rim completely, isn't it, on the right front corner. Early in the race, Joe, that can sometimes be contact, sometimes a curb strike, but either way, race ruined for them.
It's Gounon going to go for Wheeler. Wheeler's closing the door, saying, I don't want you to overtake, and does close that door. Raffaele Marcello might be able to get down the inside. Has he got to run? Runs wide, uses maybe one of his track limit warnings. Gounon's going to block the track, naturally overtaking the DTO car of Josh Rowledge. You can see the dust being kicked up. Gets down the inside. The DTO car nowhere to go. Is that going to give Joe Wheeler a chance in that Ginetta that we saw being overtaken at turn 3? That's, again, you might get overtaken and lose time, but it might give you an opportunity. Joe Wheeler's still just behind their car. Marcello so over the curb there. He's really using the track limit warnings. There's a sensor there that he'll be tripping every single time.
And the front wheel bouncing clear off the ground as well. That was quite a rough ride over the curbs for him, but it won't deter him from pushing on as they head down the Bentley straight again, continuing, though, to lose time to the race leaders. Change for the lead in GT4. So we've got the Ginetta ahead now. Mike Simpson was right on the tail of Charles Clark at the start of the lap, and he's now ahead, and by a decent margin as well. A good second or so now separating the two, and this is how he did it. Oh,
it's turn 2 down the inside, giving him a punt and spun him around.
10-second stop-go penalty for car 86 for causing a collision. Not the most shocking piece of news that I've delivered today, but Mike Simpson from the lead of GT4s being given a 10-second stop-go penalty. That is a shame.
That is gutting. Ginetta winning race 1 was mega, and it looked good, didn't it? Mike Simpson was strong. Yes, he's a pro-am, so he'll be handing over to James Townsend, who's a super rapid am. But compared to the Silvers, they get less time in the pit stops, 14 seconds less. So I think James, being a fast bronze, had a chance of an overall win today. That drive-through with a stop and go is going to be 30 seconds loss. That's almost day done, isn't it? Unfortunately for them, it's so gutting. And when you're the driver that's guilty, you just can't start to understand how possibly you could be wrong, as Mike pits for that drive-through and stop and go. Mike O'Brien bringing the car in early. Like I said, some guys I thought might do that to try and get a clear bit of space, bolting new tyres on as well for Simon Orange. So I thought some AMs might have saved a set. It's going to be interesting if Simon Orange can get there. I'll keep an eye on his times as he leaves the pits, but it's going to be hard for him to do an undercut on any of the pros that are on track. All of them are in clear air. If they were catching GT4s again, then possibly they could do it. Team manager controlling the car there, release after 10 seconds and be on their way. Nice and clean. So probably will pit in the next lap or two anyway to do the driver change. You can never do the driver change in a drive-through just to clear anything up. So you've got got the rev lights going up. We see Tregurtha box a lap early, shifting up when they all go blue. Few cars coming in. That's Hankey, Tregurtha, Kell and Webb, all just trying to beat the rush to get out and in clear air. So interesting to see Loggy is ready. All the other GT3s need to box this lap, so everyone's going to dive for the pit lane. There's no other strategy they can do now, unfortunately. So teams at a long pit lane, you can see cars stopping at the start of the pit lane and cars versus at the end. I always prefer to be at the start of the pit lane, push back early, and you've got time to manage your speed to the end of it, the controlled pit lane. You can't do it too fast. If you've left a little early, you can just ease off the throttle a little bit. I suspect that's what the Sentry car did earlier with Harper and then boxed in a couple of cars. You cannot go more than 10 kilometers an hour slower than the limit. So it's 40 here, so you can't go below 30, but you could just cruise down and block a couple of people in, and then you're in front of them, track position. James Cottingham ready to take over. Fastest man in the AM GT3, qualifying by nearly half a second yesterday. What's he going to be able to do in inheriting a 5th place car? You would say he's the fastest AM in that top 5, but what can he do about the 4 in front of him? It'll be interesting to see.
Well, it'll be the 3 in front in theory, won't it? Because, of course, the 91 car has extra time to serve in the pits, so that is a very good point. That car could well be a contender in the closing stages. Right, here we go then, pit stop time. Top 3 cars will dive in. Ross Gunn will hand over to Andrew Howard. Jules Gounon, who charges into the pit lane entry, gained a bit of time, I think, there on Ross Gunn. That was a really good entry for Gounon. He'll hand over to Ian Loggy, Marcello to John Ferguson, Dan Harper to Darren Leung, and Johnny Adams, as we've just discussed, to James Cottingham. The only one of those 5 with extra time to serve is Dan Harper. The 7 extra seconds for the Sentry car. Barwell 78 has 10 extra seconds, 5 extra seconds for the number 27 Optimum car, as some new front tyres get fitted to the number 4.
Yeah, it looks like they're all doing tyres, doesn't it? Both Loggy and Harper handing over to Lenk, taking tyres. Don't look new, though. Can't see any stickers, can't see any sort of shiny releasing agent there. Harper having to get his seat out the way. Different size drivers can drive the same car so easily these days. Seat inserts, and also the pedals in all of these cars actually slide backwards and forwards. Foggett coming in, undoing. He'll put that belt up on a magnet, so when Kevin Say gets on board, he can just pull that down. There's one of those seat inserts going in. Going to go in. He'll pull up the middle belt between his leg. Loggy already pushing back. Hopefully doesn't block his teammate in there. Ross Gunn now handing over to Andrew Howard. Push back, straight release. You can see Ferguson being held by the Ram team. Is he going to be in front or behind? It's still behind. That guy's head from Century Motorsport made it a bit more dramatic, didn't he? But all in the same order at the moment. Is Darren Luang going to drop back?
Well, I think that even the Mercedes have, really, haven't they? Because that's a bigger advantage leaving pit lane than Ross Gunn had coming in, for my money. So we also saw the Thomas Holland Ginetta in 2. That's because the GT4 pit window opened 28 minutes into the race. So the GT4 starting to dive in as well. Cottingham leaping up the order as we expected, with Darren Leung coming out at not only behind him, but also fractionally behind, I believe, the Simon Orange McLaren too.
Yeah, and Kevin Say there just pulling away now. Either stalled or the car controller got on the radio and told him to stop. I don't think it would have been that because it looked clear. Luckily, Garage 59 just with the 1 car in this race have got more space, so it wasn't compromised at all. But that's the problem. You just stalled, and then you panic and you lose 3 or 4 seconds trying to restart it. Then the amount of times you stall a second time because you've rushed it again, it all really starts to unravel. But they're going to really struggle. They've dropped quite a long way back, haven't they, after a decent start from that car. You can see some legacy damage, I think, from race 1. They've tried to match the tape, but haven't quite nailed it. So Ferguson on the back of Loggy. Ferguson's been really racy, isn't it? Start of this half a lap, kicks up a bit of dust there in the face of one of the little GT4 Ginettas, but Cottingham has a lot of clear space, so he's a long way back, probably 7 seconds behind that battle, but there's no other cars in his way.
And he was, as you quite rightly pointed out, considerably quicker than the other AMs in qualifying yesterday. Team ABBA Racing, by the way, being given a stop-go penalty for exceeding track limits. That was handed out just before Sam Neary came in to hand over to his father, Richard. There is Jules Gounon. His job is done in a way. Now he can sit back and watch the master at work, the reigning champion, Ian Loggy, as he tries to defend this second place from John Ferguson, who is never backwards in coming forwards. And Ferguson right on his tail. There's a bit of traffic up the road. He's sideways up the inside through Coram. Surely not. What a move by John Ferguson. I'm not entirely sure how he managed that, Joe, but he's into second place.
He just threaded the needle with a massive shoelace, didn't he? That was insane. The GT4 McLaren was doing the right thing. I think Loggy was too conservative, didn't think that Ferguson would put a move on him, but that was super. Loggy back to the inside. He knows historically he's been a bit faster than Ferguson and doesn't want to get held up. I was about to say, I'm surprised Jules Gounon hasn't got a headset on. A lot of the AMs like to be coached, even over the radio. Not talking to them as much as I'm talking now nonsense, but information. This is what you're going to catch this lap. Think about overtaking here. Remember, don't overtake a GT4 car there. X, Y, Z. Try and keep them calm. Find a rhythm. Make it metronomic. Big slide for Ferguson there, but he's pulling away from Loggy, isn't he? Loggy has not had a good couple of races. Race 1, not particularly fast. Donington struggled. We're starting to see a bit of a falter with that number 1, the reigning champion. Cottingham in the background, looming in as well, taking a couple of tenths out of them in Sector 1 alone. So I think this is going to get spicy. I can't really work out which way it's going to go at this moment in time.
Well, what I can tell you is that Ferguson was 4 tenths quicker than Andrew Howard in the first sector alone, but that gap had almost doubled. It was about 3 seconds when they came into the pit lane. It was 6 seconds at the end of the outlap, but now John Ferguson starting to do something about that. Even quicker than him, though, was Cottingham in that first sector, and quicker again, Simon Orange, who was also rapid in the opening stint of that earlier race. So Andrew Howard leads in the Aston, John Ferguson second in the Mercedes, Ian Loggy third, James Cottingham fourth, and here the replay of the move from the Ferguson eye view.
So there's the inside line there anyway, and he almost is forced taken by Loggy braking early. I feel like Loggy's trying to sort of block past Ferguson getting down the inside. Loggy was like, I'm not going to overtake before the last corner, so I'm going to cover off the inside so Ferguson can't overtake me. But Ferguson was like, fine, I'll take the racing line and get in front of you and claim track position as we turn in for the last corner. The left-hander, you see him getting more traffic in the last corner. That car looks loose for Ferguson. Loggy's got to run. He's going to try and squeeze him over there. What's Loggy going to do? We saw him have a little look into turn 1. Loggy was racing here a few weeks ago in a different championship. Had a huge crash there, the GT4 Mercedes, sorry. Probably going to help Ferguson out a little bit in that regard. Loggy played it safe, and it wasn't the right thing to do in hindsight. He should have been on the back of Ferguson, following him through on that GT4 Mercedes.
Well, that little bobble there for Ferguson at the final turn meant that actually the lead gap went out by a couple of hundredths of a second, so still stands at 5.9 seconds as their Enduro Motorsport work on their GT4 car now. GT4 pit stops well and truly getting underway. This is the car I anticipate will have the lead after all of this, because the 22 car has got no, no, sorry, it's the other car I'm thinking of, isn't it, that will have the extra time not to serve in the pit lane as the driver change takes place then. Out of the 22 will get Lewis Plato, in will get Carl Cavers, and that number 22 machine should be up towards the front in the second part of the race.
Some of the strongest material in the world, tank tape that all race teams swear by, just going on the splitter there, obviously cracked it, I assume with a bit of damage. Quite a strong part of the McLaren that, so it wouldn't have been curb damage, so it must have just hit someone there. Mike Simpson now pitting again, but this time for the driver change over to Townsend. So this car's going to be right at the sharp end, doesn't it? It's been so quick all year. Really, really hard to really pick fault with them at any point, hence why they're championship leaders, I guess. But Jack Brown's had a really good stint. Him and Charles Clark have really gelled this year as well. It makes such a difference when you get on with your teammate. Sometimes you get to a race weekend, and I've had teammates that I despise, and you're like, I just want to go home, and you look at the watch and it's still Thursday, and those boys have got on so well, and it just makes a difference. You talk better, you communicate better, the car setup goes better. It's all positives. So I think those guys are also in a good chance to be at the sharp end of the GT4. So Andrew Howard kick up quite a big bit of debris there over the start-finish line. Carbon fibre is so sharp, can slice a tyre open so easily that they do need to be careful with that one.
Team manager of car 97 to race control. Now that is the race leading Aston Martin. They gained 3 seconds in the pit stop. I wonder if they miscalculated slightly in that rush. They knew how tight it was coming in, had to try and beat those Mercedes out. Andrew Howard is now continuing to build that margin, but as we've said, often when a team manager is summoned to race control, it's to notify them that a penalty is coming their way. Down towards the Wilson hairpin they go, and we get the official confirmation, a 1 second stop-go penalty for car 97 for being 1 second too short in the pit stop, so it will very shortly become a Mercedes AMG 1-2-3, and John Ferguson, Ian Loggy and James Cottingham's battle becomes even more intense.
Really does, and Ferguson's still struggling with the rear of that car, and he's getting to get the traction control up. Look at the run that he hasn't got versus Loggy. That car's squirreling all around. The higher you go on the traction control, the more intrusive it is. It stops that slip and then slide. He's really cautious on the exit. Cottingham's rapid. So we've got three Mercedes, 2 different teams. Ram are leading from 2 2-seat cars. Look at it again really lively, that thing. Costing is so quick here at the moment. I think Johnny Adam has done a mega job. I spoke to him earlier in the weekend. He's down the inside of Loggy. Is he going to get down? No, he's not. He tucks back in. Johnny Adam said they've actually gone completely separate ways on setup, the two sister cars, and I think it seems to be suiting Cottingham more as the AM. Johnny's almost taken a little bit of pain. He's a little bit off the pace of those front Mercedes guys at times, but then Cottingham's so quick. Overall, they're a better package, and that is where why he's won so many British GT titles, in my opinion. He sees the bigger picture. There's no ego there to worry about being fastest in his qualifying. He's more worried about winning championships, which I tend to agree with as a strategy.
Tell you what, Jules Gounon's been through an emotional roller coaster, and he's only been out the car for 10 minutes. He now sees his car coming right back at the number 15 Mercedes, which we know is about to inherit the race lead, because Loggy has really started to get a wriggle on and pulls up alongside John Ferguson off the final corner. Here comes the challenge for the race lead then. Ian Loggy to the outside. They bang doors once, twice, almost 3 times. Watch for James Cottingham up the inside. The 3 AMGs absolutely together as they head for Ridge's corner. Loggy to the inside. Cottingham round the outside. It's the dirty side of the road. Can he find the grip? Yes, he can. Loggy will try and come back at him, but can't get there. Cottingham goes second. Ferguson somehow hangs on to the race lead. It's getting very physical indeed. Andrew Howard has pitted. This is for the lead of the race with 18 minutes to go.
That was epic, wasn't it? When you're going along the pit straight there with 2 big egos, neither of them want to let go, and that is what happened. Loggy looked like he was on the front foot to inherit the lead, and suddenly he's now behind his teammate in 3rd place. What's Cottingham going to do? He'll be thinking, wow, Ferguson's racing. He's happy to be strong. I've seen that happen in front of my very eyes, so I need to come with this fight with some fire ready. If I was Cottingham, I'd be ramming the back of Ferguson my first opportunity, saying, I've seen you be a bully. You know what? I'm a bigger bully than you. I'm a horrible man, even though he's lovely. That's the procedure you need to go through, the bravado of it all. What's he got? The pace is there. Is the overtake? That's the next big question.
We have now got Jack Brown ahead of Carl Cavers in GT4, so the championship leading car already with nearly a 37.5 point lead. That's significant because that's the amount of points you score for winning any of the final 3 rounds this season. Well, it's going to extend even further now, isn't it, with that brilliant overtake. Still a Pro-Am lead, though, for the Century BMW, and that doesn't look hugely likely to change. They're about 11 or 12 seconds clear. Has Ian Duggan at the wheel. Side by side for the race lead by a nose. It's Cottingham ahead at the line, but he's on the outside line into Rich's corner. We've seen how this can end. Ducks back into the apex, tries to get up the inside into Wilson, but Ferguson is quick through the corner, and now Loggy on his toes to try and take advantage. Orange up the inside of him for 3rd position. The McLaren not quite late enough on the brakes, actually, but it does have the inside line. No, the move isn't made. Loggy stays in front, and this is the challenge now, Joe. Each and every one of them, particularly the 2 in the middle, they're having to watch in front of them, behind them, alongside them. If they go for a move, it has to be decisive, because the tiniest loss of momentum will likely cost them a place.
Yeah, smart driving by all of them. Simon Orange looked aggressive, didn't he, with the position of the car, but actually broke relatively early and didn't try to get down the inside. But he would have logged that Loggy gave him the space on the inside. So if he does a similar move, potentially Loggy's not looking particularly racy to close that door. Cottingham was on the outside into turn 1, just overslowed it, went for the cutback, but lost too much momentum and wasn't able to carry that extra speed that the cutback should allow you to do with that wider trajectory on entry. All big damage, crabbing, so front damage and rear damage. The leaders are going to catch this car. Where is he going to go? Is he going to try and get back to the pits? He should park it up. He's doing a mega job. He's getting fully out of the way. He looks like he's on the track, but that is actually way off the track in that position. So that was really fortunate for John Ferguson. That could have been quite an interesting thing to trip over.
That was Michael Crease, whose race, I think it's fair to say, is done. He had been, well, sort of on his own, actually, 1.6 seconds behind Eric Evans and several laps ahead of the next car, so I'm not entirely sure how he's managed that or where he's managed it, but lots of damage done to the Raceway Ginetta.
Yeah, if he's not near him, got to be the tyre stack on the inside of Hamilton, and like I said in race 1, super heavy, so hit that, couldn't even do it. And the Mustang has damage, though, so I think maybe that's the other piece in the puzzle, something hanging off its right-hand side, so maybe that tyre stack was innocent in this one. What's Cottingham got? It's just, I can't really say which part of the track he's stronger than Ferguson. It's a little bit everywhere, but he's not really allowing us to see which bit is the big difference. Of course, they're the same cars. Orange to the inside again. That was late. Got it down the inside. Lockheed's so fair with him. he was a long way back. I think you've got to be closing the door on that. I think you want to fight it. He's given up a third place podium position. Maybe he wants to get home early. He doesn't want the podium presentation. But what it does do is release Orange. And now Cottingham doesn't have a sister car behind. He has got a completely different car with different strengths, run by a different team, obviously, but also not in the same championship position as him. So I think this is going to get super interesting with, what, 4 laps remaining.
That's exactly how you called it, though. He had that dress rehearsal a lap ago, Simon Orange, realised that Loggy wasn't going to close the door and took full advantage and committed to the move the next time around. It just buys James Cottingham maybe one free attack here without having to worry too much about the McLaren driver behind him. He's all over Ferguson as they head onto that Bentley straight, and I think he will get alongside here. A good run down the straight. Ferguson, interestingly, leaves him the left-hand side of the road free. That's the inside for Brundle, but the outside for Nelson. This could get interesting. Dirty side of the road for Cottingham. Ferguson sweeps across in front, and keep an eye on Simon Orange, the bright orange McLaren in third position, looking to try and take advantage of this. That was the one free attack that Cottingham had, and now the top 4 are back together again.
And Johnny Adam is fuming for Johnny Adam. He actually looked very calm, but he looked dejected. Cottingham did mega, he got down the inside, it was his corner. Ferguson did a great job of going back over to the racing line, giving him the most grip into the left under the bridge. Cottingham should have forced himself all the way up onto him to open up that angle. They were on the opposite sides of the track. They just didn't maximise it there, Cottingham, in that regard. And going there, Orange is going to be looking at this. I think he is licking his lips. I know we don't see a lot of overtaking here cleanly, like I've been keep going on, but I really fancy Orange at this moment in time.
Well, especially given how good he is on the brakes. He's maybe close enough to Cottingham to try it again. Looks to the inside line. This is his move, but Cottingham just crept across to the inside line, covered it at the last second. This is fantastic racing. Disappointingly, only 5¼ minutes of this race to go, so a couple of laps remaining to settle it, and 4 cars after 55 minutes of racing. A pit stop, a driver change, compensation time added, and we've got the 4 of them covered by a second, as again Cottingham looks to the inside. Ferguson moves to cover. Ferguson trying to almost play them all off against each other, but he's very wide this time. Can Cottingham get the overlap? Inside line to Hamilton. No, Ferguson still keeps in front.
Cottingham's just weaving all over the place. Even the extra distance he's having to do over the lap is adding up on him. He just needs to consolidate. Orange is looking racy. Could even get a cutback here out of Oggies. Doesn't get quite the drive of that Mercedes. Such a good torquey V8 engine. Turbo V8 in the McLaren. Sometimes a little bit laggier. Ferguson wide again. He's got to be so close to track limits, hasn't he? We're really, really struggling here to see who's going to get the advantage at the end of this straight. You can see the bodywork's all starting to flap as well. Everything's getting fatigued, us and the cars.
Tell me about it. Oh, look at Loggy now peeking to the inside of Simon Orange again. Andrew Howard, by the way, has been given a 30-second penalty to be added on at the end of the race for speeding in the pit lane. Cottingham's on the inside into the bomb hole, has to back out of it. You cannot go side by side through there, and he knew what Ferguson was going to do. Here comes Simon Orange up the inside, trying to take advantage. Can't move into second place, and again, John Ferguson can breathe a sigh of relief. He stays in front. There will be 2 laps to go in a race that I don't want to end, and Cottingham is starting to get fed up. Massively outbrakes himself into Murray's, and now is a sitting duck down the straight. Simon Orange with the run. Which way does he go? He's forced to the outside line. Does he have the momentum, the speed down the straight, creeping slowly alongside the AMG, which holds the inside line? Can Simon Orange sweep round the outside? It's risky. There's no grip. He's off the road, and Loggy might now be back into third.
He's going to have the momentum into turn 2, isn't he? Loggy's down the inside, just needs to break at the same point as Orange, not too late, and take his teammate out. I really think Cottingham there should have asked the question of Ferguson. He was getting squeezed up to the grass into the bomb hole. It was within his right. He had an overlap to stay there. I think Ferguson then would have turned himself around the front of Cottingham and gone into a different Norfolk postcode, but that's not a problem to Cottingham. He just hasn't attacked at the right point. I'm so frustrated for him. He's so fast. He's such a good driver. I really think he had opportunities today to be in front of Ferguson, but we're getting to the point of the race where I just don't think he's going to get a clean-cut opportunity, and I think Orange was on that front foot, little aggressive. We know how slippy it is offline here, and that really showed. He did a good job to keep it on some of the black stuff at least.
The 2 drivers in this battle, a very strange line into Williams, the 2 drivers in this battle who have been the most aggressive are John Ferguson and Simon Orange, the 2 who are not fighting for the championship, and I think that's the only reason that Cottingham hasn't done any of the things you've been telling him he should do. He's got to try and score the points. He's outscoring all of the other championship contenders. As much as the red mist is descending, as much as he wants another race victory, the points for second place are worth going for sure with 1 lap to go, is it really worth a tangle with John Ferguson that could take you both out of the race and really scupper your championship hopes?
Shut up with your good logic and strategy there. I'd much prefer Travis N, but you are right. He's still going to score mega points, and championship always the focus.
Is he going to go to the inside? I don't think he's really close enough. We know that Ferguson's good on the brakes. Can he get it into the apex? Does on this occasion, actually. He's really tidied up his act through Agostini. He was out-braking himself a lot there earlier on, but now is able to get into the corner quickly, but stop it, rotated on the apex, and really now James Cottingham running out of obvious overtaking opportunities. He's not close enough into Oggies. The next one, and possibly the last real one, is at the end of the Bentley straight. He's been close before a couple of times. He's got himself alongside John Ferguson at the end of this straight. He is more than close enough to have a go, or at least ask the question of Ferguson, but is he going to commit to the move? We've got 41 seconds left on the clock, and I think given the fact that Ferguson's been defending a bit more on this lap, it could be a slightly slower lap, might end up being checkered flag this time.
I was just looking as they came into the final sector. The final sector had been doing mid-36s. There's 37 seconds remaining of it. Another run, not quite as big as the one before, into the bomb hole, but still so close. I'm looking across from our commentary position, looking for the checkered flag. Let's treat it like it is the last lap, just in case we're not treated to one more. I'd pay a lot of my money to get one more lap, because I still think there's something in this. We saw Cottingham lead over the line, didn't we? Are we going to get that? Is he going to get over the line in front, even if it's not a clean overtake? Checker flag would be shown. That first end of the concrete bit isn't shown from what I can see.
They've given them another lap.
Let's go.
They're side by side. There's getting another lap of racing, and somehow Ferguson is still the race leader. Outbreaks himself. Cottingham was ahead by 17,000. There's traffic up the road as well. What more do you need? On the inside, steam. Simon Orange for 3rd place. Contact with Ian Loggy, who tried to close the door far too late, and Orange goes through into 3rd position. Now, what can he do? How does that change the dynamic between the two AMGs in front of him? GT4 traffic up the road, though, Joe. What does this mean?
So close. The timing screens initially showed Cottingham leading. Ferguson now was in the lead by 0.04 of a second. So I think it was so close. The timing transponders were probably sending out slightly different frequencies for the timers to work out who was in front. Big sound, skid marks there.
It's Loggy and Orange. They've tangled at Agostini, battling over 3rd place. And that, we didn't see from that angle clearly what happened, but there has obviously been contact between the two, and that is the reigning champion off the road. He'll still rejoin in 3rd, I think, and hopefully Simon Orange in 4th place, but it means it's now just a 2-horse race. Cottingham all over the grass as he heads out of Oggies, and look at the sea of GT4 cars to be negotiated. In a way, they're catching them on the perfect part of the circuit, down the Bentley straight. Will they clear all of them before they get to the end of it, though? I don't think they will. Advantage Ferguson for now, but he's... Cottingham is slowing. Is he out of fuel, Joe?
Possibly. I'm trying to think what it was. He had made a big mistake, which I was aggrieved that he wasn't going to get a chance, but what's he doing? Everything looks like Ramos celebrating early. Wow, you're brave, boys. But if it was fuel, then I would be expecting to see maybe. I think what we're seeing is the checkered flag's actually been shown, even though it wasn't physically out. The timing screen is now updated to show the checkered flag was out. The drivers definitely didn't know that because they were fighting all the way. So I'm sorry that we made half of an in-lap very exciting.
This is a replay of the leading group crossing the line. This is the moment at which the race was declared.
We have just seen one of the most intense battles ever. Let's see their body languages. Ferguson looks pretty happy, so they obviously look like they've won. Loggy and Cottingham look pretty happy. Bryn Lucas there is always looking confused with his demeanour, so he doesn't really let us allude.
Joe is absolutely right, though. That was some of the best side-by-side racing I've seen in this championship for a long time. Right then, Bryn, I'm hoping you can shed some light on what's going on here.
According to our timing screens, you won. You won here last year as well, so you got good form around Snetterton.
Absolutely, but obviously this man here's the engine that drives all this, you know.
Well, let's find out the thoughts then of your teammate. I mean, a decent stint for yourself to start with, and then you hand over the car to John. He had his work cut out. Were you on the radio? Were you talking to him all the way through?
No, I mean, it's better to let him do the work. He had a lot of pressure, so it's better if he focused, but I mean, he did an amazing job. I mean, it was aggressive enough, but yeah, I mean, it's a nice win.
Just talk us very briefly about the battle from your point of view, because, I mean, you had to do so much defending. James was trying to find his way through at every moment.
Well, obviously, we know James is very quick. He's probably, well, he is the quickest arm there is. And I knew he was going to be coming. and it was a matter of making sure the car at the apexes, no track limits, and just try and keep powering out of the corner. There was a few times it was close, but I just dug in, and thank goodness we did.
Victory for Ram Racing, the number 15 car, and that is John Ferguson and Raffaele Marcello victorious. Again, their 4th win in the last 3 years at Snetterton, and Ferguson's second. He won here with Elise Tapau a year ago, remember, in a similarly thrilling race, I seem to remember. Second place for the 2Cs Motorsport car of Johnny Adam and James Cottingham, likely back into the points lead now, although I'll do the maths later. Ian Logie and Jules Goun on their teammates, joining them on the podium. Moving down then to GT4, Jack Brown and Charles Clark claiming another race victory within the GT4 category. They're second of the year, but they've only been off the podium twice in the first 6 races this season. Right then, how to sum this up in 3 minutes or less? Let's remind you of some of the action from that second race of the weekend here in Snetterton in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It was, if you can cast your minds back that long ago, Ross Gunn who led through the first corner, the Beech Dean Aston Martin inheriting pole position after the withdrawal of the number 88 McLaren. Jules Goun did his best to challenge to the outside at the Wilson hairpin, almost opened the door for Raffaele Marcello as some of the greatest GT drivers in the world did battle at Snetterton. Contact then between the race leaders in GT4. Mike Simpson was subsequently handed a penalty for that, and the number 90 car rejoined remarkably quickly, still in second place. That car would go on to eventually win the GT4 race. Battling amongst the pro drivers in the first part of the race was as intense as we're used to seeing. Sam Neary there battling away with Will Tregertha, whilst Chris Froggatt kept a watching brief. Then into the pit window, the pros staying out as late as they possibly could, and this was where the drama really started, because the Beech Dean car was too short in the pit lane, came out as the leader, but was given a penalty, and then John Ferguson managed to make a miraculous pass against Ian Logie to get into what would become the race lead. However, those two were battling hard. They were being caught by James Cottingham, the fastest AM driver in qualifying yesterday, and he was making some brilliant moves around the outside of Logie through Rich's corner, and at this point looked almost a certainty for the race win. There was the pass for the lead in GT4 because the number 90 car had to come back against the Century Motorsport BMW, which had had a much shorter pit stop. Simon Orange then joined in the fun to make it a 4-way fight for the victory, rattling up the inside of Ian Logie for 3rd place in the closing stages. Then a bit of confusion at the end. The checkered flag wasn't shown, but this was the finish of the race. John Ferguson hanging on by less than half a tenth of a second to claim his second victory here at Snetterton. And breathe, everybody. That was, well, everything we hoped for, really, from a 60-minute sprint race in British GT. And we do now get the drivers making their way up onto the podium to celebrate, perhaps, if they feel like it. Ian Logie doesn't look like in a particularly celebratory mood, does he? Understandable, really, after that collision that he had, 2 collisions that he had with Simon Orange in the closing stages. But he and Jules Goun finish in 3rd. It is 2nd place for James Cottingham and Johnny Adam. But the win here in the second race at Snetterton goes to Ram Racing. And it's John Ferguson and Raffaele Marcello who claim the win. And that will be, I believe, Marcello's first victory in British GT as well. One of the real hot signings coming into 2023. Fantastic to have him on the grid, and he is a race winner in the second race of the weekend here at Snetterton. As the champagne flies on top the Snetterton podium, and there will be lots of discussions, I think, to be had after what was a race we are not going to forget in a hurry. It was 3rd place then in GT4 for R Racing, Seb Hopkins and Josh Miller. 2nd place for DTO Motorsport, a solid day for that team. A top 6 in race 1, a 2nd in race 2 for Aston Miller and Josh Rowledge. But it was Jack Brown and Charles Clark victorious in GT4 yet again. I say yet again, it was only the second win that they've had this year. It feels like they've won a few more times, but that's because they've been on the podium in 4 of the first 6 races we've had this year. 3 more races to go this year. Be sure to join us next time as we head to Portugal.